All right, so this will be part 2 of my coverage of the Rich Paul and Max Kellerman podcast, which is genius by LeBron James and Clutch Sports to launch this as in his last season in LA. He will be getting a lot of arrows from the LA media no matter what he says, and this is a great Cold War machine tool right here. As Rich Paul throughout many episodes tosses out a lot of gems on what's going on behind the scenes with the Lakers. There's multiple wars going on in that front. There's new ownership. Jeanie Buss is slowly transitioning this Lakers franchise from a mom and pop internal hire only to opening the doors for this new ownership to allow outsiders to come in. And she first started with a few of her siblings, firing them from the scouting department. You also have her allegiance to Rob Pelinka, who has not done a good job in the past couple years outside of landing his big fish. This is something that Rich Paul, throughout this segment, you'll see him elaborate on. And speaking of big fish, you gotta wonder, what is Luka really thinking watching some of his prime years be wasted? Entering into last season, he was coming off a finals run and he was on a brand new team. The chemistry wasn't quite there, especially with a brand new coach in JJ Redick. And you're looking at this season with LeBron James opting in. And what about next season when they have to construct a whole new roster around him and for them to get things down right to make those deep playoff runs? So at the end of the day, there's a lot of moving parts inside of that Lakers building. And we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes of all this, as Laker fans throughout the past couple seasons have begun to open up their eyes as they watch the old memories of a championship aura fade away from this organization. I'll link in the description below in part 1. Rich Paul has spoke on them not necessarily being a championship organization today. But again, this shit's going to get real, as we'll kick it off with Rich Paul in a lot of double speak, sort of in a way very subtly criticizing Rob Pelinka's roster moves. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
You could, like, Jamal Murray's a combo guard.
He was not their two
He's
guard.
the point guard, but he can.
Who was their two guard?
He can do a lot of the shooting.
You're being disrespectful, Max.
Who am I being disrespectful to?
KCP was their two guard.
Yes, he was.
And he won two.
Yes, he
All
was.
I'm saying is,
You're right. No, wait. Let me.
And where did KCP play before? With the Lakers. Once again, very subtly throughout this whole segment, you'll see Rich Paul dig at Rob Pelinka's roster moves throughout the years. And you gotta wonder, with Jeanie Buss and her allegiances to Rob Pelinka, why the hell did she give him an extension after new ownership had purchased the team?
Let me retract my former statement. Jamal Murray's bringing the ball up the floor. Jamal Murray's getting you your offense. Jamal Murray's also shooting the lights out in the playoffs. Contavious Caldwell-Pope is your two guard.
but what I'm saying is, he won't ever get the credit of being a top two guard. But in a championship moment, when a team needed to win, he made big shots.
Yep.
And he made big stops. He's never going to get the credit of those tier one guys because they do all things throughout the course of an 82-game season. But when you talk about the playoffs and you have the other pieces,
doing your role at the highest level when you need it the most.
So I'd rather talk about, we know who those guys are, but I want to talk about the guys that win guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not taking those guys are tier one. I'm talking about the better conversation is if you have everything else, right? And you need to plug in a two guard. You got a big that can play make with touch, et cetera. You have a point guard that can score. You have a wing that can defend and also score. You don't have the money necessarily to go and get this glamorous two guard. Who do you go and get? That's where I like Norman Powell. That's where I like KCP. Now, the interesting thing about Desmond Bane
and
is
that's actually relevant because the way the NBA salary structure works, your money is very likely going to be directed to your primary ball, if he's a star. Hopefully, the following guys are a star. A primary ball handler who can do everything, and either and a wing who can play two ways and score and all that stuff. So now, how do you fill out the other positions?
Yes, but there's a lot that goes with that. Like in Desmond Bane's case, people don't remember Desmond Bane is on a max contract.
And that hurts.
Desmond Bane was the 30th pick in the draft. He's on a max contract. By the way, that draft was really good. in the back from 20 to 30.
Yeah.
They have two guys in the top from 20 to 30 with max deals.
Who else is
Maxey?
Oh, yeah.
Bane.
Oof, yeah.
Now that right there shows you how the NBA has changed in the past couple of years. Nowadays, there's almost no ceiling for players who even go undrafted. Look at Fred VanVleet. He was able to earn over $100 million contract. So there is a vast amount of talent that's available in these drafts. But the real question is, does Rob Pelinka and the Lakers have the eye to scout him out? Once again, Jeannie Buss had just got rid of her siblings in that department. And also, are the Lakers really even in the business of winning right now? With the drafting of Bronny James, they didn't necessarily have the breathing room with LeBron on the team to make that sort of pick due to all their previous missteps.
Exactly.
Is Maxey a two-guard?
Maxey's a player.
Yeah, he's too
That's
much
half
of a...
Mr. Bias
Yeah.
hat.
No.
but that's also,
I agree. He's a
can't-
combo backcourt player.
He's a basketball player.
Yeah,
You know, I
basketball,
texted
I
him the other night
Great player.
after he missed a shot, and I think VJ got the tip, he got the put back. But the IQ of Golden State, they got that ball out fast and boom, kicked it. You know, the NBA does these background checks on guys, right? And they know everything. They know who your kindergarten teacher was. They know what you ate for lunch in the kindergarten every day. Every day they know what you ate. But I always think about it in this case. He missed a shot. He had the wherewithal to get up off the ground and sprint back and block Anthony Melton's shot.
He sure did. And even when he missed the shot, it led to a score because it was a smart shot. It put the ball around the basket anyway, and then on the other end ices the win with a
why was VJ able to get the putback? If you watch that play, Tyrese shot that ball over two people. So now
there's no one. Yeah, there's one person sucked out. Yep.
But the point I'm making is, in most cases, that player acts the part. And the part that they need to act is, oh, I missed a shot. So you sulking in this thing, I roll over on the ground, I missed a shot. But being able to get up and go and make that play, I text him after the game. I said, if a guy don't want to play with Tyrese Maxey,
out of their minds.
There's something wrong with
he's a litmus test. Matter of fact, I think you, me, and Simmons were texting about, because when that happened, I was texting with someone about it, because when that play happened, when he got back on defense and ices the win I'm thinking, man, that's a championship player.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what I'm saying about Desmond Bane is, Desmond Bane's on a max contract. Because Paolo's money doesn't come on the books until next year, I believe, they was able to trade in Desmond Bane. Because if you look at everything else, you know, they paying Wendell a little money. They paying Franz is the only other one.
And Bane is max, but he's like in the 30s right now because of...
it was the max
then.
Right. But what I'm saying is, they were able to trade him in, and he actually got him and KCP actually switched. But plugging him in there because obviously they felt like they needed whatever, more shooting, etc., and see how it would mesh. But it was very interesting to see how they were able to do that, given the fact that Paolo had actually showed that he is a max player without paying him the max. The flexibility that you have when a young player is giving you max production.
Of course. It's like a quarterback on a rookie contract.
So you're able.
In a way, Rich Paul is saying, Rob Pelinka, you know that you have to pay Austin Reaves. While you have some cap flexibility, why didn't you make any roster moves? The comparison for how the Magic in that small window addressed a situation that they really needed, which was shooting, before the max contracts kick in for their top rookie picks.
But that leads to something else, which I mentioned briefly, which is, you know, Trae Young goes down, Paolo goes down, and the teams go on winning streaks. I was thinking about that because, and I think Bane is above this level, but maybe he fits in as the best example of this kind of guy.
Max right now is trying to set up the conversation from when LeBron was out and the Lakers were winning with Austin Reaves and just Luka.
There are the distance between an all-star and your kind of just 3 and D plus guy, right, is much short. It's much less than it used to be. It used to be the all-stars were a lot better than role players. And to me, and I brought up Bridges before, because he's the kind of guy, you don't want him to be the primary scorer on your team. But if you
No,
make
but he can score.
If the Nets need a guy to do that, he can get you 20 plus a game.
Well, he showed us. See,
and that's why when guys like Trae Young and Banchero go down, and the teams keep winning, and the fans are like, oh, maybe of course you need those guys, and the fans are like, maybe we don't need those guys. What they're seeing is, I think, the effect of everyone being asked now to do a little more. But nowadays, everyone's more capable of doing a little more than they used to be.
Guys are definitely more capable. But what happens in that case, Max, when a guy like Trae Young goes down,
right,
the style of play changes. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that's pick and roll heavy, and he has 25 points, 15 assists. He gets his assists and he gets his points. But then you're able to play a different style of basketball. Mm-hmm. So it's not a matter of if they're better or not. It's just a different style of play.
But I think the fans appreciate that too, that it feels more like a team game. Anytime the ball has energy, everyone's touching it.
Well, here's the other thing. When you have a star guy that is going to take the shot most of the times, teams are actually able to guard you a lot easier because they know the go-to guy.
Sure.
That's why if we did the percentage of games the other night,
that's why James Harden never won a championship. That's why it's the jury is out on Luka, whether or not he's a championship player, right? Because they're too ball dominant and guys are standing around.
I believe the real question on Luka is going to be after he signs that 10-year Supermax, making over $70 million a year, and just teams being aware of that second apron, not wanting to hit it. Will Rob Pelinka land not only on the draft picks, but also on the free agents and just trades to put around Luka? History tells us that this is more than likely not going to happen.
Here's the thing. This is why, if you can change your style of play in the playoffs, you need those guys. Don't even. Right. Those are two of the greatest.
You just don't need them to be doing all that all the time.
Well, what happens is a Tuesday night in Detroit is a lot different than a week and a half of a 7-game series. So now, I know for a fact, coaches don't show you everything. Mike Brown isn't showing you everything, right, just in case they have to see you in the playoffs. I know T. Lue for sure. He didn't show you everything, just in case you have to see him. I used to sit with T. Lue at his house. We'd be up late, and he's going over coverages, film, and I would be sitting there with him because I wanted to know. And sometimes in the game, it would be a timeout, and I would be like, "Yo, T. Lue, what you running?" And he would say, "I'm running this, or I'm running." And I'm just a basketball crazy guy. But I wanted to learn certain things, certain coverages. You had times where teams wouldn't even show you the defense,
sure,
because they're going to see you down the road.
I mean, my algorithm shows me Greg Maddux setting up dudes because he knows he's going to face them again in the playoffs, and then giving up a home run on purpose so he could set the dude up for the. I mean, that's next level kind of chess.
If you play with the top guys in the league, you might get 3 shot attempts. So now you have to be able to, 1, embrace a role, 2, perfect that role, and 3, be willing to play that style of basketball all the time. That don't mean you can't do other things.
You just don't need
to.
So
going back to Mikal Bridges, the player he was in Phoenix, you didn't see that. And then the player he was in Brooklyn, those are 2 different players. But Mikal Bridges is smart enough to do as he's asked to,
right.
He can do whatever
but
the
you
coach
know what?
asks
Let me
him
say
to do.
something.
But then the other thing is, what if he also lacks IQ and willingness? See, I think that's so underrated because
willingness to accept the role.
Yeah, this is the biggest issue we have, whether you have a guy that plays 20 years and get to a place where it's like, I don't want to. People were saying, oh, this guy needs to fit in, right?
Right.
They were even talking about LJ. He has to fit in. Well, he's only ever fitted in. He's only ever made the right basketball play, did the right basketball things. You have to take into consideration whether you're starting a team from scratch or whether you plug in and playing a guy where you're moving pieces around. If this guy comes in and he's a 25-point scorer.
Mhm.
But for this team, I need him to be a 15-point scorer.
Will he do it with a good spirit about it so that the team... I get it.
This is, and by the way,
Now, it could be a possibility he's talking about Luka, because with this current version of the Lakers, Luka does not have to be a 30-point per game scorer. And some of that energy does have to be utilized on the defensive end.
you don't have to necessarily score 25 to be paid at the level of a 25-point scorer. You know how I know this? I did it. Tristan Thompson.
Right.
You wouldn't have said Tristan Thompson was at the same level of hit the top bigs in the league,
Mhm.
but he got paid because of what he embraced his role
Well,
to
people
be.
would argue he got paid because LeBron James gave him
but
leverage.
that's bullshit.
Okay, wait,
here's
hold on.
And here's why I call
go ahead.
here's why I call bullshit on that. That's a cop out, and people want to say that to discredit me first and foremost.
No, I
That's
think
just
they're
tough.
giving you credit, actually.
No. You're not giving me credit with that. That's false.
They're saying you're using clients
use
to
anybody.
leverage other...
No, that's false. That's not true. But again, that's fantasy agent.
Yeah, that's speculation
right?
and lazy
But
okay,
the fact of
correlation.
the fact of the matter was,
There is definitely a leverage play that Rich Paul does not want to acknowledge. It's not a coincidence that the Lakers kind of follow suit of when LeBron James returned to the Cavs by having so many Clutch Sports client on the team.
they were in attacks. They drafted him number 4. He had the ability to. If you ask Tyronn Lue who he wanted on the floor when you needed to win, when you have a big that you can switch 1 through 5, and he may not necessarily stop a guy, but he makes it hard on the guy.
Mhm.
That's great. When you have a big that knows how to hold a screen just long enough for that guy to either get around it or for the defense to be in such a frenzy that now when he slips and that guy makes that pocket pass, it's too late for this other guy to move over. So that's
Team
a dunk.
defense.
Yeah, but these are things that don't show up in the stat sheet. Now, also, you can't replace them.
In a way, it almost sounds like Rich Paul is talking about Alex Caruso. That's another player that Rob Pelinka let slip through the ropes.
I used to have this conversation when Chris Bosh was on the Heat, and he was giving you 13 and 8, and Kevin Love was in Minnesota giving you 24 and 12, and everyone was telling me Kevin Love was better than Chris Bosh. I was like, you sure about that? If you watch, I don't think you'd be so sure. But before, like, not to get too far into the Tristan Thompson of it all.
No, I was just using him as an example, but I'm saying in terms of when you talked about having this many Desmond Bains.
Right.
All these people we're talking about, and I put Mikal Bridges there too, these are all the same people because of how they think.
Now, as it continued on, very similar to part 1 of this, they use a lot of analogies of NFL players and certain circumstances that they are going through to relate it to LeBron James. As right here, they use Jalen Hurts, the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, and they locked in on his ability to manage the game very similar to LeBron James. And this is very interesting because this season, Luka has struggled with the amount of turnovers that he has.
You're going to have to put your Mr. Bias hat on for this one. Because
what we
because
have?
Jalen Hurts, who was having look, whatever people want to say about Hurts, they protect him in the offense, whatever. He has a great team around him. If you're telling me you have a game manager who can pick up first downs with his legs and plays out of his mind in the playoffs and in the biggest moments, that's who I want on my team, right? So I'm pro Jalen Hurts, except that he's on the Eagles and I'm a Giants fan. Otherwise, I'm pro Jalen Hurts. He had a horrible game. It's like historically bad. So I need you to put your Mr. Bias hat on.
I don't need the Mr. Bias hat for that. I don't think so.
What do
But go
you,
ahead.
if you have a client, I'm saying like if you have a client like Jalen Hurts, what do you tell him after a game like that?
I think, look, players have bad games, right? So if you want to say, if your client has a bad game, it all depends on the character of that client, right? If the guy's a more quiet guy and, to leave him alone after he may not have performed the way he would have liked to, then you probably just give it a day, give it a night, etc. Some guys like to talk about it to get it off their chest after the game. In the case of this situation, you're talking about a guy who holds himself accountable and moves on. So I don't have any.
You don't have to tell him put it in the rear view. He'll do it himself.
No, that guy's the ultimate pro. I think you see his temperament. I think but these guys have a hard job, right? You're expected to go out there and be perfect every night. Some nights are better than others, but when a guy's won an MVP and championship and been to 2 Super Bowls and
sounds a lot like LeBron James. His game is being questioned, how it's going to fit with the Lakers. He is a game manager, and he does have the experience. A lot of double talk here.
Super Bowl MVP. That's one guy I do not worry about. But to answer your question, it varies. I've been in situations where, a guy is up all night and you're having a conversation. And it also depends on when it is. Regular season game versus it could be in the finals or the Western Conference Finals or a playoff game. You have to have a very short memory in our league or in any professional league, because what people have to realize is the talent of all these guys is off the charts.
Sure.
Everyone's extremely good. The differentiator is mindset. And in most cases, I tell guys coming into the league all the time, this game at this level is 90% mental. It's 90% mental because it's a roller coaster, and you have to ride the roller coaster all the way to the end. And when you ride a roller coaster, it's up, it's down, it's around, it's twists, it's the whole nine. And so I don't think it's a specific thing. I think it's more so you having and knowing the relationship of you and your client. And then the way I handle things is very matter of fact. I had a conversation with a client the other day. We talked for about an hour and a half, and we just talked about focusing on what's in front of us. And it helped them. It really helped them in terms of just from a mental perspective, because these guys have to deal with, first of all, nowadays, everybody has a voice. Mm-hmm. Everybody has an opinion. Everyone has a podcast. Everyone is on TV.
And that right there is brilliant of you and LeBron James to kind of counteract a lot of that noise with this podcast right here. So far, just in the few first months, we've seen the media try to blow up a situation with LeBron James laughing with the players in the Phoenix Suns during a blowout. Also him shooting a free throw when it seemed like the team didn't even know that it was discussed that he would take the free throw. And even things as small as LeBron James saying that he'd rather be with his family for Christmas. Once again, in this last season in LA, there's going to be a lot of arrows coming in LeBron James's direction of why this team, even though they have Luka, is not successful.
There's a lot of takes of people saying things without knowing all of the information, right? And so because of that, if you have a guy that reads into that, or they come home and a family member, there's a lot of things that I think these guys should probably do to get away from it. But
Jalen Hurts,
that's one guy I don't wear.
So you have to stay with me on this one. The Travis Kelce thing is interesting to me when he drops crucial passes, because I understand if a baseball player doesn't have the reflexes anymore, late in his career, he becomes a guess hitter, right? He can't catch up to the fastball. He has to guess. And if the pitcher makes a mistake, he can hit it. And if he doesn't, he's not going to hit it.
Max Kellerman right now is setting up the conversation about LeBron James aging.
If a fighter is older and his reflexes are slowed, he sees the shot coming, he just can't get away from it, okay? But a tight end who's sure-handed, who drops passes in critical situations, to me, it's not like you forget how to catch. That's not the same kind of thing. So I start looking for other reasons why that happens. And I think guys like, you know who I trust at the free throw line in a big moment when I think of like players ever? A guy like Kobe Bryant. I look at a guy like Kobe, and there was nothing in him working against himself in the sense like, I don't deserve this, right? He believed he deserved to hit that shot,
and I relishes that moment.
Because he thinks he deserves it, right? How you were telling a story about your dad. My dad's a shrink, so this is like I think it's psychologically. When Kelce drops a pass, it feels to me like there's something going on psychologically, like on some level he's not aware of. It's like he doesn't. When I see A.J. Brown, another guy, sure-handed receiver, and his quarterback's having an awful game, and he drops a dime into his hands, and A.J. Brown, and there's been some static and there's been some chirping, drops the pass. To me, that's a psychological thing. That's a thing where, like, I don't know, like in Kelsey's case, maybe he's like, man, we're just not good. We don't even deserve. I'm not saying, Travis, I'm not saying you're having these thoughts consciously. I'm wondering what's going on. And I'm thinking maybe unconsciously that's what's going on. When a guy like A.J. Brown does that, to me, that's symptomatic of something wrong. You know what I mean? That's not just like A.J. Brown, catch. He has good hands. How does that happen?
Well, he
in that moment.
I saw he said he had accountability too. I think that's step one. He came out and held himself accountable. I think in situations when you play in a team sport and you have in any team sport, in any locker room, it's a ton of ego, as we all know. You have to have some of that to even get to the level of most of these guys. But then I think there's a world where I don't know how often this is done, and probably next to never. I mean, we've seen it with duos that played together that just couldn't figure it out, whether it was Steph and Garnett, whether it was Shaq and Kobe, whether it was...
Well, they figured it out eventually.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Took them a minute. It took Phil Jackson, basically.
Whatever the case may be. But then after the fact, you see guys get back together and they would say, man, I wish we would have just... I think...
Youth is wasted on the young. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in these situations, I would love for guys in all sports to really take a step back. Sometimes just take a guy to dinner, go over a guy's house, sit with him. I don't care. There's situations I've been in where it's like, I don't care if you're mad at me. You think my players don't get upset at me about certain... I get situations where a player may not text you back for 2 days.
Who?
All of them.
Who can you talk about on the air where you're like, I knew this dude is mad at me?
All my players have gotten mad at me, in times.
Because of stuff you said to them.
Because of stuff I've said, yeah. And in time. But we have a good enough relationship to laugh about it or to talk about it and we move on. But I say to them, and I would say to other guys out there that I don't even represent, when you're in these situations and you have a good thing going, right? How do you recognize the good in it? Sometimes you have to go.
And you're saying AJ and Hurts don't recognize or...
No. I'm just saying...
Because it looks like that play makes you think something's broken.
I'm saying in any situation. I think I was talking to Darius, and I was saying, Darius Garland, and I was saying, because the Cavs were in kind of like a funk, and I was saying, these are the moments where, you go and, you and Donovan, go have lunch, go and talk, go sit on somebody's couch or get with Evan and get with the guy. Like, it don't have to be a big team thing, but sometimes it's just like, okay, what do we think the issue is? Like what, and it doesn't have to always be like this most serious thing. Sometimes it's just about getting together. The best teams, the camaraderie of it all, guys that want to get to the hotel and, what time we meet in the lobby? We're going to be there at 8:00. The guys who you're at the table and you got 3-4 guys on the team that's fighting for the bill. Mm-hmm. That leads to, I'm having an off night. My man has 47. Let me get him 50. Oh, let me get him 60. Because we like each other. And I think, I'm not in any NFL locker room, so I don't want to speak on the locker room. I'm just speaking on what it takes sometimes to really recognize the good that we have. And even in life, recognizing the good that I do have and not focusing on the things I don't have would do a lot for you.
I think that's really interesting, but I think there's another dynamic at work, which is, and I'm not saying that's the case here, but I'm wondering. So real recognize real, game recognize game, right? So Carson Wentz had a great season. He was looking like he was going to be the MVP. They get hurt, and then Nick Foles does what he does, and they win the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And then you could notice, and I started hearing things about locker room issues with Carson Wentz and this and that, and I was saying it on First Take at the time, and I was being told I was crazy, and eventually they draft Jalen Hurts. I'm like, that's because they want him to play quarterback. No, you're crazy. And then eventually they get rid of Carson Wentz. I think a couple things can happen. You could have an issue in the locker room that metastasizes, right? But that's usually corrected if the ballers on the team look at the quarterback and say, whatever else, he's a baller. He's like me, right? If they don't think that about the quarterback at a certain point, then that thing can get worse. They have to be able to look at the quarterback if it starts going sideways and think, we're the same animal. We're both ballers. And the question with Jalen Hurts right now, and I've seen him in the biggest moments be a baller, right? But there is the issue out there, man, they help him out in the offense. They don't ask him to carry it. Is he capable of carrying it consistently? Does a guy like A.J. Brown ever look sideways at Jalen Hurts and say, but he's not like that? And that's like, I don't know the answer to that question. I think Jalen Hurts can be like that. But I wonder if A.J. Brown looks at him and asks himself that question.
All I know is if going to 2 Super Bowls, being a Super Bowl MVP,
and also could have almost been the MVP of the first Super Bowl against Mahomes.
Leading your team to a championship has any questioning of someone being like that, then I mean, I don't know.
Is Austin Reaves like that?
Yeah.
If you were his agent, how would you advise him right now?
I don't want to play fantasy agent, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I want to be respectful to his agent.
Okay.
Yeah. But what I will say is,
we're not playing fantasy agent.
He's in a great. Here's what I would say. Yeah. He's in a great spot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a player like that playing on a stage like LA with the Lakers, you got to look at it one or two ways. And you have to decide. There's enterprise value playing next to a Luka, playing with LeBron for historically franchised.
For the team in basketball, really.
For the Lakers. And then there's a world where, but I can go elsewhere as a free agent and get every last dime, right?
You know, I've asked a lot of players about this. I'm saying, what percentage of your career earnings would you give up to have won a championship if you didn't win one, right? And this is the answer the answer I normally get falls between 5 and 15%. Because and people are like, oh, but they're already so rich already. When you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, if fans expect dudes to give up half, really all the NBA is a TV show. And all the playoffs and the finals is a bigger TV show. So really what the fans are asking of the players is to give up tens of millions of dollars in order to appear on an even bigger TV show. And most players are competitive enough that they're like, I want to win a championship, up to about 10 to 15% of their earnings. And then they're like, let me get the money.
In a situation, if it's a $20 million difference over 4 years,
right?
That's $5 million a year. The person that is a little not uneducated but inexperienced would say, oh, he can make that up because he's in LA. Not really. But I do think there's a world of enterprise value that comes with, right? And
personal competitive winning, satisfaction for the rest of your life, telling your grandkids you won a championship.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is just playing in LA for him.
Yeah.
The situation with Austin Reaves is already interesting because he already foregoed getting drafted, just hearing his name being called out in order to join the Lakers. So he really went undrafted just to be a part of that franchise. And who knows, on the back end, I'm not sure if he's going to be willing to take a pay cut now.
But then
for Austin.
Yeah, for Austin, because that's what you asked me about. Yeah. But if there's like a $80 million difference and the cost of living is cheaper, and, so those are things
you're describing his situation.
Yeah.
There's going to be probably an $80 million difference, right?
Well,
and it's going to be in a non-tax state, and it's going to be in a lower...
It could be. So those are things where, for me in my position, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, you have to really... Now this becomes a real conversation.
These are interesting times because Rich Paul speaking about Austin Reaves just exploring his options. Reaves is the only piece that the Lakers could really trade away to at least put something around LeBron and Luka. Especially coming off of last season, the Lakers didn't really make any plans. They could have traded away anything that was valuable, a guy like Austin Reaves, get 2 other pieces who could play defense around Luka and LeBron, and perhaps even extend LeBron James for a few more seasons for a much lower salary than the $50 million a year. We all gotta wonder, how exactly did the offseason talks go with LeBron James and Rob Pelinka? And what were the Lakers' plan outside of Luka? Keep in mind, Jeanie Buss and Pelinka did make the trip overseas to visit Luka. And LeBron James, to kick off the start of this season, was seen practicing in the Cavs facility, the Clippers facility, making numerous rounds on multiple podcasts. This is the first time in his career he'd even start off the season. This whole Lakers saga with LeBron James is going to be interesting when everything is all said and done and the real stories come out.
Because you're not making $80 million up. You're just not.
For the rest of your life, by the way.
No, you're just not. You lose the stage, yes. You probably won't be playing half of your games on television. But once you've had that, do you crave that, or do you because I think you work so hard to get in the position that he's in to be able to have options. And when talent is going to always have options. That's number one, clear. But then there's a world where now I'm thinking about, my family, and I'm thinking about when I'm done playing and all these type of things. And the good thing about him is I think he can play anywhere, because I think for me just being around him, his lifestyle, he plays golf, family guy, pretty simple guy, loves to play basketball. It's not like over the top. So,
right.
He'll
fit in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So continuing on, Max Kellerman and Rich Paul praised Rafael Stone and the way he built the Houston Rockets from the ground up, and them having a number of young players who are ready to impact the game. It was another stab at Rob Pelinka, as throughout the course of this segment, he's going to get many arrows thrown his way.
But I thought to myself, but you know what? That's a really good franchise. The Rockets are a team that have spent their draft capital wisely. Like if you look at Amen Thompson, if you look at Reed Shepard, if you look at Jabari Smith, right? If you just had that as a nucleus of young players that you used good draft capital on, even if none of them are franchise players, but you go, man, that's a nice young nucleus. And then you add Şengün and KD.
Well, Şengün was a part of their draft class. They drafted
right.
him.
I'm saying, but if you just ignore their 2 best players and look at the other guys are good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I disagree on the dysfunctional
of the Falcons.
I disagree with that. On this, I agree. Rafael Stone has done a really good job of, 1, getting the talent. And then 2, he had to make a tough decision last year. I don't think he necessarily wanted to part ways with like a Dillon Brooks, because Dillon Brooks anchors defensively. He brings this energy, this tenacity that you need to win games. But he had to make a choice, all right? So Dillon had to go because you're getting Kevin Durant back. Obviously, he would have loved to keep Dillon and Kevin Durant.
Sure.
But then when you look at from Fertitta to Rafael and what they've been able to do, 1, be a little patient, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Another shot at Rob Pelinka reacting too quick and pulling that trigger for Russell Westbrook.
A little patient. 2, okay, we're gonna take guys, but we're not gonna just take names or we're not gonna just take highlight guys. We're gonna take guys that we think kind of fit in where we're trying to go. So you get a guy like a Şengün. Then you identify, Şengün can actually do more than what we thought he could do.
Yeah, that turned out better than you could have hoped.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you start putting pieces around. Amen. Right. What he brings to the table night in and night out. He wreaks havoc. And he can
defensive superstar.
And he can do a lot more offensively than you think. Those guys, those Thompson guys, they're smart basketball players.
Even a guy like Kogi or someone like that, that's like a good piece.
You get a Kogi who knows his role.
And by the way,
that was a great pickup by the Rockets, by the way. But again, this situation with Rob Pelinka, I believe the Luka trade highlighted a much tighter window for him to show off his ability or lack thereof to have the proper pieces around Luka. Make no mistake about it, that Luka trade is going to highlight more if Rob Pelinka is truly a competent GM.
And now with all these guys, he's hitting he's hitting shots because you got to leave him alone.
Yeah, well, he was a first round pick coming out. But I agree in terms of what you're saying. But when you think about that, the patience that it takes, and then being able to draft some of these guys and then convincing those guys how important it is to play a role. So now when you get an opportunity to, you just have to wait, and then boom, we can plug a KD. Now, unfortunately,
And KD was a perfect missing piece for that Rockets team. You can see that they already had a vision and they just weren't chasing names. Now right here, Rich Paul's going to respond to the naysayers and a lot of the noise that's being said that this whole venture with Max Kellerman is just a propaganda tool. And for the most part, it is. But I like how they did it. They sprinkled everything out through various episodes and using the analogies of NFL players, but in reality, they're relating it to what's going on with the Lakers and LeBron.
What's funny to me is how many people think that you're here to do propaganda. By the way, I'm sure you will do some propaganda. If I think you're doing it, I'm gonna call you out about it. But I read something like Lakers fans were reacting to you saying that Austin Reaves should come off the bench. I was the one who said Austin Reaves should come off the bench.
Yeah, you said that.
I said that he should be like Ginobili or someone, right?
On a championship contending team, I believe so too. That situation is really going to put another spotlight on Rob Pelinka. Will he let Reaves walk away for free, or this season, is he able to flip him for multiple pieces that they need, especially defensively around the perimeter?
Well, again,
yeah.
If you're talking having a championship, see, I think people don't understand. And look, you need that, right? You need people just flying off the handle, but the internet is like an Arnold Palmer of intelligence and ignorance. So it don't matter, right?
Yeah.
You need them both.
Good mix.
But what I would say is, if you have a championship team and the best case scenario for your team is for a player at the talent level of an Austin Reaves to come off your bench, I don't think Austin Reaves would have an issue with that.
Facts. The marketing around the NBA puts fans in a very compromising position because many of the players throughout the years that have been called quote-unquote stars are really just third or fourth options on championship teams. Same thing for a player like CJ McCollum. Even though in the Portland Trailblazers, he was allowed to take so many shots and he put up all-star numbers. But to get to that championship level, CJ is a perfect player to come off the bench, especially with that defense and his efficiency in the playoffs. And on the flip side of the coin, there are stars who realize even though they do have a name, they're much better suited being role players on their team. We've seen Andre Iguodala for the Golden State Warriors. Before then, he was the number one guy with the Philadelphia 76ers. Aaron Gordon, he was the number one guy in Orlando. And now he's sort of like a second to third option out there in Denver. In this current era right now, we're about to witness a few players who've been marketed as stars of their teams eventually end up in the situations where they're going to be at least a third option, aka Trae Young, Ja Morant, and LaMelo Ball. And also, I'm going to add on another perfect example, a player like DeMar DeRozan. The whole time, that Toronto Raptors team was really a championship squad. Once they were able to move him out the way and get a true number one in, that team elevated. Also, since leaving the Raptors, he has never really returned to being that number one option. Some of your favorite stars are really getting that type of branding because of opportunity, aka Zach LaVine.
You know what? I want to take I was about to say, would you hose down my hot take? The reason I said, hey, we'll do the fireman thing with you is if I said if the Rockets are fully healthy, they're going to win the chip this year because of OKC, right, being so dominant. That's a hot take. Would you hose that down?
No, I'm putting lighter fluid on that. And I'll tell you why. Because you have Ime,
championship coach,
Fred,
championship, like, playmaking ball handler,
Kevin Durant,
one of the greatest players who ever lived.
And you have youth.
At the highest level in Sengun.
And then you have, I'm doubling up on Sengun because he's a matchup problem.
Are we saying Sengun or Sengun?
I'll just say really good player.
All right.
That's what I'll say.
Really good player.
Right?
Really
That guy that's,
really good
the
player.
guy that's really good that's not named Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really good.
Fine. So when you have that, now this is what people don't understand. Obviously, I have partnerships with all teams, and I'm never going to say something on our show that I wouldn't say to them. But also what I'm not going to do is I can't lie to our subscribers. I can't get up here and fake the funk. That's never been me. I have to be authentic, right?
Sure.
So people look at me and say, oh, Rich is an agent. I heard a player or something say, oh, it's weird for Rich to talk like that.
That was, I'll shout him out, Kenyon Martin. And I thought,
it's weird for him to think like that.
no, but he was not being negative. If you listen to what Kenyon Martin said, they have a device on the show, and I'm forgetting if it was, but it was basically like good or bad, right? Hot or not, whatever that is.
No, it was, is he, yeah.
But that's
like,
the
are you
idea.
buying it? Whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Buy or sell, right? And he refused to say, because he said it's neither. It's interesting. That is not negative. And what
I don't think Kenyon would be negative.
I think he's right. Like, one of the reasons I was interested in this is because to me, it is interesting. Like a super agent giving opinions on sports is interesting.
Okay, so basically what everyone is saying is most agents don't know basketball.
Is that a fact?
That's what the reaction is saying. Because if you're a basketball agent and you don't know basketball, then how the hell could you be what are you doing then? Then you might as well just be a loan officer in that case. Like what?
No, but he's saying they're just.
Yeah, sometimes Kmart looks like he's hating a little bit on Rich Paul and LeBron James. Some of your more bigger agents in the past couple of decades have become prominent GMs. Leon Rose with the Knicks, Bob Myers with the Golden State Warriors. But fast forward, the fellas continued their football analogies by relating Joe Burrow's situation to LeBron James. And Rich Paul, is he possibly making a pitch to the New York Knicks right here?
Yeah.
You win a championship, other team is hurt. That's maybe why you did it. The following season, you run off an historical record, a historical run in terms of your wins and losses. Remains to be seen whether you can win. Competitive front office, competitive franchise, may add another piece. Okay, so I want to get to Ohio. You want to talk some Ohio sports?
I'm Mr. Ohio. I never won Mr. Ohio. I wasn't good enough as an athlete, but
I figured you might want
Browns and Buckeyes, baby. Browns and Buckeyes.
This is the Bengals, though. Joe Burrow.
I mean, if the Browns isn't in it and the Bengals are in it, I root for Burrow. Yeah.
Joe Burrow is one of my favorite. Joe Burrow, I mean, Jackson Darks, I'm a Giants fan. And Mahomes has just been crazy. But Joe Burrow might be, other than Dart, my favorite quarterback in football. And let me tell you why. He was the quarterback of the greatest college football season ever. They capped that season.
That was a great team. That was a great team.
It was. They capped the season with a championship in which he had the greatest championship game of all time. He's drafted number 1. The next time he's fully healthy on a football field, he's sauntering into the AFC championship game in a mink coat like he's Joe Namath. And then beating Patrick Mahomes to get to the Super Bowl. So I love me some Joe Burrow.
You can't hate. Nobody could be able to hate on Joe Burrow. You shouldn't.
Joe Burrow is net, but once they got to the Super Bowl, they were beaten. Yeah. Partly because he has no protection. And he's been sacked more than, he's probably getting sacked now somewhere, for all we know, more than anyone. And he reminds me so much.
You think he's getting sacked at Starbucks?
Right now, someone's tackling him. He reminds me so much of another Ohio athlete that you may be familiar with, LeBron James.
Yo, Max should definitely be called the setup man right here because his analogies are kind of spot on because Rob Pelinka has not gotten LeBron any help in the past couple of seasons, and even with the addition of Luka on the team, it's pretty redundant.
Where LeBron dragged the team, maybe one of the least talented teams ever, to the finals in his first go-round with the Cavs.
07?
Yeah, and they lose, of course. And I remember as a fan, and you could tell me if I'm right or wrong, watching from a distance, seeing them pass on a trade centered around J.J. Hickson for Amari Stoudemire. And to me, that had to be when LeBron was like,
oh, that was tough.
LeBron must have been like, if I stay here, I'll get criticism, whatever. But if I stay where I am, I have one life, I have one career. If I stay where I am, I'll never get to the promised land because this franchise won't do what it takes. By the way, Kobe did the same thing to the Lakers. Like when they wouldn't put people around him, he said, trade me to the Clippers. And then they went and got him Pau Gasol.
Kobe was just adding a little extra sauce talking about the Clippers, but he was really ready to go to the Chicago Bulls. That right there that the Laker fans, especially the Kobe stans, do not like to talk about. Dr. Bust, the Lakers owner at the time, he got the ultimatum. It's either Shaq or me.
Burrow seems to me from afar to be doing that right now, saying, I can't keep doing it like this. Something's got to change. And it reminds me of your guy.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow should go to the Giants.
What?
I would love to see Joe Burrow
Jackson Dart
on the
good.
Giants.
Now, Rich Paul, are you really trying to make your pitch right here to the New York Knicks? You see them in championship contention and maybe, hey, why not pitch to that bandwagon, right?
No offense to you, Jackson Dart. I think you're a very fly guy. But Joe Burrow in a New York Giants uniform
it'd be crazy.
is like Snoop coming through and crushing the buildings.
Yeah.
It's Joe Burrow. No offense to Jackson. I think Jackson Dart's going to get his money. He's a hell of a football player.
Or at least Capone and Noriega clapping back on that.
Fair, or
Yeah.
it's like Nas, but it's like Joe Burrow and the Giants with Malik Neighbors. They both went to LSU. I'm just telling you. But anyway, I understand, yes, and this is what's underrated about athletes. Again, going back to the LJ situation. I, at that moment, was not as mentally positioned where he was at in terms of, obviously, he's the player. So the getting out of there thing was tough for me, obviously being from Cleveland, but also I'm just like this Mighty Mouse type of guy, like we could beat anybody, it don't matter.
Believe in ourselves.
But when you really think about it, you think about the success of people, of athletes, it takes a lot, right? When you think about what the Patriots did around Brady, when you think about what Jerry Krause did around Michael, when you think about even what the Lakers did around Kobe,
It's hard to get it
and
right.
Shaq. It's hard.
Uh-oh. Rich, are you trying to allude that you're relying too much on Rob Pelinka? All those teams you just named were surrounded by great GMs.
Is very hard to get it right. And so, but when an athlete takes the position that they take, whether it's media, whether it's fans, you're not looking at it holistically. So in Joe Burrow's case, and I saw some of the take, what he said. I know I think one of his teammates thought it was like AI or something, I think he was saying. Which leads me to, I want to see Joe Burrow on the Giants.
Once again, second time you brought that up, you want to see them on the Giants. Are you saying you wouldn't mind seeing LeBron in New York?
I want to see Joe Burrow on the Giants.
Yeah, but you bring this up now. Any other moment of my life, I would say, are you kidding? As a Giants fan, that's all I want. My favorite quarterback on my team.
Once again, more double speak. LeBron James is Max Kellerman's favorite player. He would love him to be on his Knicks, which low-key, that's really his team. He just hates the fact that throughout most of his lifetime, they were a losing franchise.
Giants got the guy. They got a guy on a rookie deal who's...
Is he better than Joe Burrow?
I mean, does he have the chance to be on that level? Yeah, he has the chance to be on that level. Jackson.
Now right here, very interesting. I'm wondering if they're talking about Brunson. Does he have a chance to be on that level? But again, it's for you fellas to decide.
Jackson Dart is like
I like
that.
Jackson Dart,
He
but
is
I like Joe
like
Burrow
that.
better.
I right now, of course, he's more experienced quarterback.
So let me ask you this question.
Jackson Dart is one of those guys.
Okay, so what you're saying as a Giants fan, that if you had the chance to put Joe Burrow on the Giants right now.
Oh, no, I got my guy.
Really?
Yeah. Like Drake May is the guy right now of all the young ascending quarterbacks. I'm not convinced Drake May is going to wind up better than Jackson Dart.
So where would you?
We'll see.
So where would you place Joe Burrow?
I don't think you're going to have to place him. That's what I'm saying. Like Kobe didn't leave, LeBron did. But there's enough evidence in front of owners now to understand when that guy takes a position like this publicly, you got to fix that. Because you're not going to just find another Joe Burrow.
You're saying, okay.
Once again, Max with the double speak. We see LeBron James, he's clearly on the outs with the Lakers. And ever since the days of Magic Johnson, we really never seen the Lakers be at odds with one of their major key figureheads. So continuing on with their football analogies, the comparison between Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes was made, when in reality, it's LeBron James versus Luka, as I do believe there is a power struggle within that dynamic that has yet to come to the fold. With Luka's lack of conditioning, the double chin is sort of coming back, and the defensive effort is really hard for him to kind of solidify himself as the captain of this team. It looks more, instead of earning that right through his on-court play, he's really been given the keys by the franchise. When you're playing alongside a guy like LeBron James, who once in his career was in a true championship environment down there in Miami, a lot of the babying that happened in Dallas and eventually is trickled over into LA with Luka, it's not going to sit right with a guy like that.
And of course, speedy recovery Patrick Mahomes, he is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. But
hopefully he don't do that. But it's Allen's time. It's Josh Allen's time.
This is the thing about Josh Allen. I have never been as high on Josh Allen as everyone else. Like, I just feel as though he's had enough at times to make deeper playoff runs. He hasn't done it, like Lamar Jackson.
Did my Browns pass on Josh Allen?
A lot of teams passed on, well, a bunch of teams. I don't remember.
That's not what I asked you.
I don't remember if the Browns.
Did my Browns pass
I don't
on
remember
Josh
if I don't
Allen?
remember. While we're figuring that out, I've always liked Mahomes better for obvious reasons. I always liked Joe Burrow better. I look at Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson kind of similarly. Incredible regular season players. Let me see you lead your team to wins in the playoffs, make deeper runs than you guys have made. But I gotta say, the eyeball test this year has said Josh Allen's better than Patrick Mahomes. That's what the eyeball test has said. The numbers this year have said Josh Allen's better than Patrick Mahomes. And anytime someone brought them up together, I'm like, stop. Mahomes is an all-time great. Josh Allen, let's see him get it done when it matters most. At this moment, this is the first time I would say in Josh Allen's career, that's the best quarterback in football. Like, there's when your eyes tell you something, you look down at the numbers, that says something. You look at the team results, and they all say the same thing.
Now, Max, what's really telling us as the viewing audience something is that LeBron James is at age 41, and there's really not that much difference between him and Luka when you factor in the lack of defensive effort on Luka's side. So the real question is, how can he solidify himself to be the leader outside of the people in the front office saying that he's the leader? He's going to have to solidify that in the locker room, and it really starts with his defensive effort.
I think that's the best. And I know it's not like when I was a kid in tennis, Borg would win everything all the time. And at a certain point, McEnroe beat him head to head. And that was a changing of the guard. When Michael Jordan beat Magic Johnson in the finals, there was a definite changing of the guard. I'm not saying that's what's happened with Josh Allen. He hasn't done it yet. But it felt yesterday like a sea change, at least in the AFC and among the quarterback rankings. Like something happened yesterday that deserves to be noted. To me, Josh Allen is the best quarterback in football.
I don't think you said anything wrong there. I think Josh Allen has played his way to that perception from you. I think it's deserving. When you play well, you get those flowers. I don't necessarily like to be like, oh, I think Burrow and Mahomes is a head and shoulders above. It's yearly, right? Because Lamar Jackson's been the MVP. So that means he's had a better year consecutively than all those guys for the regular season. But then come playoff time, it's a different dynamic.
But I think playoffs illuminate that stuff.
That's what I was going to say. We focus on the playoff wins, the same thing in any other sport. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Josh Allen getting his flowers. I'm okay with that. This is why seasons and strategy and decision-making is so fragile. Because think about it. The Packers was right. We're going to get the key piece to our defense. We're going to plug them right in.
And it worked.
And it worked. The only thing that's undefeated is injuries.
Yeah.
Because you can have the best plan. We've seen it. And I don't want to beat a dead horse or bring up old stuff, but we've seen it in other sports. The plan is great until it's not. And the only thing that can really make it not is an injury to that guy. Somebody else could have been injured, but the fact that it's Micah Parsons, and that's the chess piece.
People hated the Luka AD trade was not just because of the age or the way Luka's perceived, but AD, his history tells you 60 to 65 games a year, right? He's tall. He played the way he played. He's gonna miss 20-ish games in a season. So that's, I think, and given his age, that was like the main reason people got mad at that trade, because AD is a superstar. But it's like you can look and say, hey, there's a high chance for injury or physical deterioration here. So when that happens, if that goes sideways, people can actually get mad at the plan. But with a guy like Micah Parsons, it's not like, oh, he's some kind of special injury risk. They got him in his physical prime. So that's just bad luck that happened.
That's just bad luck. And it's never, I cannot remember a time where two guys at that level that means that much to their organizations go down on the same day.
Think about this. The Chiefs were eliminated basically on the next play from the playoffs. Who says if Mahomes is in that game, they don't win that game, right? It looked like, oh, they have a good chance to win. Gardner Minshew, very good backup, came in, did what he tried. He tried to do what he could do. They lose, right?
Right.
And at the same time, Parsons goes down. The Packers are live in the NFC. They lose that game, and your entire kind of prognosis, right? The way you would project them to play and how far they could go change. They go from, hey, they might win the Super Bowl to, I don't see the Packers winning the Super Bowl.
Well, the thing is, when a guy gets injured like that, it's not just about him. It's also about the rest of the team. You know, you lose your morale in that moment because a guy, we saw it in the Game 7 of the finals. You know, when Halliburton goes down, it's like, man, you know, it's just a
You
real,
lose your leader, at least on defense in this case.
Yeah, and it's also like you feel for that person, right? You know, no matter how strong they are, when you are a close-knit team, you feel for that person. And I've been there with a ton of injuries. You know, when Kyrie was injured in the finals at Golden State, that was another, you know, tough one that, who knows, you know, it changes the outcome of the series in that matter. So
the morale is a thing. The fact that you just lose Kyrie or lose Micah Parsons, there's no way to replace that.
For those guys.
Cannot make up for that level of talent.
And that's where people got on T. Lue when he said what he said about the next man up. You can say next man up mentality all you want, but if the next man up is not equivalent to that level of impactfulness, it's not really the next man up.
Right.
It's the next man available that we actually have to put out there.
Although what's crazy in the NBA nowadays is Banchero goes down, they get hot. Trae Young goes down, they're fine.
Same thing when LeBron went down. The Lakers got hot. But what does it really mean?
Right? Like there have been instances, and there are other examples where LeBron went out and they were okay. There are examples of in the NBA right now, especially, I think, a super important piece going down and the team still.
Well, you're talking about two separate things here. Mahomes and Parsons are critical pieces of winning a championship, obviously, right? Because the Chiefs aren't playing to go to the playoffs. They're playing to win a championship. And when you trade for a guy like Micah Parsons, you only have one thing in mind.
Right. You're looking for the chip. Yep.
He's not talking about making the playoffs. They want to win the Super Bowl. Those other guys, you know, Paolo goes down with a slight injury. You're just talking about a different style of play.
I mean, when he went down, the coach was under fire and the team was
100%.
losing. And then their best player goes down and they start winning.
Well, but again, when you talk about best player and best way to play are two totally separate things. So sometimes when you have the best player, it's up to the best player to recognize, okay, how are we actually playing the game with what we have and where do I fit in, right, in moments? Because oftentimes, especially in basketball, especially today, like there's no authentic identity to most teams today like it was back in the day.
Or like the Heat have an identity, right?
Well,
Like
the Heat is a system. They have sports system. They're gonna play.
But they changed their whole identity in terms of the way they play. But they have an identity. We're gonna play fast. We're gonna do it like this.
Well, before all that, you're gonna play right. That's why guys can go to the Heat and really do well. I mean,
once again, Rich Paul's talking about the foundation that the Lakers organization does not have. Even though they landed their big fish in Luka, the foundation which he could build on is still not there.
You take guys that was on the Heat, and then when you take them off the Heat and put them in a different environment, it's sometimes not the same. But going back to the point, when certain guys go out, even like Trey being off the Hawks for a moment, well, that just allowed them to play a different style. Now you got a 4-man and Jalen Johnson that can rebound, push, get into a dribble handoff,
and bring the ball up and all that stuff. Yeah,
but it's less high pick and roll every time down.
And in this modern,
especially when you have Luka, it's always going to be high pick and roll every time down. Once again, these guys set up this podcast in a brilliant way where they could drop a lot of gems throughout many episodes on top of doing all this double speak with football analogies.
In NBA, when you have the high pick and roll and it's 2 guys playing basically and 3 guys standing around, that's not the same as when the ball is moving. But
that doesn't necessarily, it's probably a better way to play the game for wins. But
what is a better way to play the game for wins?
Being able to really have the, you know, you got to have the ball moving. Rick Carlisle said at the end of last year, he said, and when you look at both of those teams that was in the finals, yes, they had their go-to guy, but any and everybody was comfortable taking the shot within the floor of the offense.
Hey, Rich Paul's in his bag right here because the NBA has definitely evolved since even 5 years ago. Not only the small ball era is ending, but teams now really have no traditional point guard and just 5 players who could really make adjustments and the proper reads generating offense. We've seen the New York Knicks move away from having Jalen Brunson just consistently bring the ball down the court in that Tom Thibodeau offense, and now it's more free-flowing with a lot of quick decision-making from all 5 players on the court. But with Luka, once again, it's just pick and roll going downhill. That might have worked well from 2019 to 2024, but in this current landscape right now, teams have to evolve. No wonder they call the NBA a copycat league, but with all copycats, some of them are actually late to the party. And when you have a young head coach and you're a franchise like the Lakers who are always trying to make their stars happy, so you kind of cater to them a little bit too much, it creates the recipe for a very, very uncomfortable dynamic.
Any and everybody was comfortable taking the shot within the floor of the offense.
Because they're used to it. Because they're not, it's not just a high pick and roll.
So that changes things.
Like the way this started, so people know, is I get a call from you maybe a year and a half ago.
Yes.
And I was already developing something that, and you were like, hey, are you ready to do this show? I thought you were kidding.
No.
I thought you wanted to rep me or something. I didn't know. So after about 5 minutes, it occurred to me, like I wasn't taking it serious. I thought, and I was like, oh shit, he's serious. Yes. And then I thought, like, if Rich wants to do that, if he's willing to put himself out there, let's do it. And then much later on, Simmons calls me and the ringer gets involved. We're like, yes, we like that. But like the thought, what the people from afar think is that this has been orchestrated by like LeBron James.
It's the weirdest thing, but it just goes to show you really how people think. Yes, LeBron gave me an opportunity, and I am overly appreciative of. But if you talk to the man himself, he'll tell you that guy has his own mind. That guy took an opportunity and went and built something, which allows me to be in the position I am today to do this show. The reason why I wanted to do this show is because, again, I don't like to put a limit on myself. I know how far I can go, but there will be some times where I have to really just totally, bluntly tell the truth about a scenario, and maybe one of my clients are involved, and maybe they're not. But it was more so about being insightful, right? Being insightful and giving a perspective that I think there's an audience that wants to know. I can't worry about the audience that wants the drama or that only wants you to talk about one team in a perfect way. That's not how it works.
How do you deal with having two clients in a game? I mean, one of them's a bigger client, but you have to represent the interest of both. You have LeBron James and Dylan Brooks.
Yes.
And they get into it.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm not one of these guys who's like conspiracy theory in the 16 finals. Oh, because the league got rid of Draymond. Because to me, that was a brilliant move by LeBron. If you have a hothead on the other team and you can goad him, and he's got a lot of fouls, like his next tech, he's suspended for a game, and you can goad him into a tech, good for you. That's what LeBron did to Draymond. He kind of goaded Dylan Brooks into a critical mistake late in the game when Dylan Brooks got the tech. And maybe that leads to, like, you know, there were more plays after that, but it was a close game, and LeBron figured out a way to get his team a little advantage, and Dylan Brooks gave it to him. What do you do after a game like that, Lakers win? How do you deal with both clients?
Well, simple. First of all, I think people get representing players and like being a nanny mixed up. Like, I'm not a nanny. It's like these guys are grown men. You got two guys.
Overgrown.
Two guys competing, right? Compete.
But do you get on, like, if you communicate with Dylan Brooks, it's like, yo, what are you doing?
I love Dylan Brooks.
But
you know why?
Do you advise
Brooks,
him, like, hey, what are you doing?
What do you mean? No, he's playing basketball. He's doing what he don't play for the Lakers.
He got teed up in what turned out to be a 1 or a 2 point game.
That, I mean, obviously, you know, Dylan Brooks, Mike George is Dylan Brooks' agent at Clutch Sports Group.
Right.
And we represent Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks, obviously, you know, you don't want it to go that far, and you know, you could say, well, it could have went either way. It was in the heat of the battle and things like that. But let me just tell you something. Like I said this the other day when we were talking about the Rockets. I can guarantee you that Rafael Stone, if he could have kept Dylan Brooks and got Kevin Durant, he would have. And I'll tell you another thing. If there's a team out there that can go and get Dylan Brooks that actually has a chance to win the championship, they should. Because yeah, he had the situation where he didn't make the shots in the series against Memphis a couple years back. But you want that guy on your team.
Competitive.
Yeah. And he's a guy that you probably don't want to play against every night. But if he's in your locker room, you want that.
Classic case of a dude who you hate when he's on the other team, but if he's on your team, you love him.
And so could some things get a little chippy, whatever the case may be? At the end of the day, poke the bear. Like, I want that. I don't want it to the extent that he gets a technical foul.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't want it to that
Actually,
extent.
the dude who poked was the bear. The bear poked and got the reaction.
But
and
here's what I'm saying.
You know,
I think you go just, and I think he knows this, you go just right up to that. So that was unfortunate. You learn from that. But I enjoyed the combat, the competition of it all. I enjoyed the challenge. And you know what? For LeBron, in his case, he's in year 23. There's nothing he hasn't seen, right? And so when you're going into a game like that, it's a Sunday night in Phoenix. At the end of the day, he played a pretty good game last night.
Hit two of the final three free throws to get the win.
Well, he should have made the technical free throw.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he should have made the and we'll talk about that later on tonight. But nevertheless, he came back and
Why is LeBron shooting that technical free throw?
Now, this right here is the genius of the timing of this podcast. You see, they're addressing a lot of small things that the media are blowing up that's happening within this Lakers team regarding LeBron James. Again, with LeBron being on his way out, I'm pretty sure his backers and Clutch Sports realize that there's going to be a lot of arrows tossed their way. And to partner up with The Ringer, Spotify, and Max Kellerman to get their narrative out was a win-win situation. I mean, shit, look, they're getting paid. They're helping Spotify and The Ringer promote their brand, while at the same time, this thing is really to counteract a lot of the narratives with LeBron on his way out of LA.
You could look at it both ways, but here's the thing.
He's not the worst free throw shooter. He's not a great free throw shooter.
But when you look on the floor, I actually like the challenge of him taking that free throw because it's all a mental thing. So the fact that he wanted to take that free throw, you just got to knock it down. Okay, fine.
I mean, Rich, let's keep it a buck. LeBron James, for a player of his caliber, he's always been known as not being a good free throw shooter.
But now you draw the foul on Devin, and he makes 2 or 3. So you win that game. But
was
never,
it a foul?
Oh, it was a foul. I'm not saying that because if it wasn't a foul, I would say it wasn't a foul. But I think Devin would probably say, man, would you have called that in the first quarter? Probably not.
That was a little ticky-tack. Yeah.
But nevertheless, they called it. Look, there's been plenty of calls that went against the Lakers, right?
Yep.
So
yeah.
For once or twice, they get a call, fine, whatever. But nevertheless, what I'm saying is LeBron has seen everything in 23 years. I believe that some nights you need that challenge because the regular season could be dull, it could be boring. I didn't mind it. I really didn't mind it. And I didn't mind, it always take him to get up to here for you to really, because he don't really get rattled. He don't, people try antics. We've seen the blow, the kiss in the ear from Lance Stevenson. You've seen people try to
blew in his ear,
do something, do different things.
So as we continue, Rich Paul further elaborates on the talent pool of the NBA, guys just coming into the league, just being on a higher caliber. And teams like the Lakers should have a good enough scouting department where they could find gems in the draft. Just in the last decade, we've pretty much seen plenty of examples of you could be a second-round pick all the way to an undrafted guy. The amount of money you could make is pretty much unlimited. You got Jokic and Jalen Brunson coming out of the second round. You got guys like Jimmy Butler, Austin Reaves, Fred VanVleet, all went undrafted. And depending on how much money Austin Reaves gets offered, which is probably going to be over $100 million, all 3 of those guys pretty much got that contract. And let me harpen back to Rob Pelinka, because the real question is, what gems has he found in the past couple of years to put around the stars of this Laker team?
I was just talking to some they was college students.
Yeah.
And the young man asked me, to give him a couple gems. And they were talking about school. And I said the same thing. I said, you're not going to use what you learn in school pretty much in real life. I don't know the last time I used the MLA format to write anything, or the obtuse, or TI-83, 82, 84, whatever, to do a math problem, right? But I said to them, but the foundational habits, getting to school on time, paying attention in school and listening to a teacher is being coachable.
And training yourself how to think also.
Yes.
The exact information is not important. It's training your brain, getting your brain the reps in terms of how to think about stuff.
Yes.
And
I can tell you, most guys don't. Most
are not independent enough to turn their home life into the job.
And now, when the superstar guy doesn't get there, that person gets all the blame. But what we're not taking into consideration is, what did the teammates do when they were at home? Because during the course of a game, you come out of a timeout, especially in basketball. The most important thing in basketball is after timeout execution.
Yeah.
The coach could be.
There's points. You can either leave the points on the board there, or you can put them on the board.
And when you're evaluating talent, right? Most of these guys look at a mock draft and want to go after the top guy because he's that. But you really have to evaluate a lot of different things. And one of those is that. And these teams are starting to evaluate that even more now, because they do this. So a
dude like Maxey, when you see him coming up, you're like, that dude is going to do what it takes.
And that do what it takes attitude is something that Laker fans still have to ask themselves about Luka. Is he willing to put the defensive effort out there? And also, most importantly, stay in fucking shape. How the hell that double chin has returned during the season?
Maxey?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Do you know, we trained during COVID, right? Tyrese Maxey, during COVID, was doing 2-a-days, during COVID, sometimes 3-a-days. He was never late and never complained. And by the way,
And how old was he at this time? He was like 19,
20 years
20?
old.
Yeah.
And the draft that year was postponed. So normally you have 45 days of pre-draft. We had 6 months.
Right.
So for 6 months,
That's discipline, boy, and passion.
and I'm calling teams, and I'm saying, what? You talking to me about a 3-point percentage?
Now, Rich, are you saying that you had the inside scoop on certain players and their mentality, and you was informing Rob Pelinka and that Lakers scouting department, which was pretty much Jeanie Buss's siblings? Once again, that mom and pop dynamic of the Dr. Buss Lakers, it's gonna have to die in order for this franchise to truly evolve and compete with other organizations that are really putting big money behind certain departments. It's not until Jeanie Buss sold the team you started to see media members come out the woodworks stating that certain departments within the Lakers did not necessarily have the funding or were even well developed, such as their analytics and their scouting.
This guy.
Everything's going to come. No, it reminds me of what Kobe would say about how he would be the same age as someone else who was almost like they're around the same level, but he would think, I'm going to get up, I'm going to get to the gym at 5 a.m., and I'm going to get 2 hours extra in before he does. I'm paraphrasing, but he goes, and then, 5 years later, that guy can never catch up to me.
That's the brilliance behind the legend of Kobe Bryant. He didn't necessarily come into the NBA being that guy off the rip that could lead a team into making deep playoff runs or even possibly a finals appearance. He had to put the work in. Sometimes the Kobe stans do try to change the history, not realizing he didn't come into the league on the same level of a Penny Hardaway or Allen Iverson. He had to put in the work, and that's the brilliance of the whole Mamba mentality, because after a certain time, not even guys like Allen Iverson, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady could even touch him. And they all came into the league just off rip, even before playing one game, with more God-given talent than Kobe. So fast forward right here, once again, we're seeing Rich Paul come to the defense of LeBron James as the NBA media blows up his comments about playing on Christmas Day. We're in the times of certain algorithms, and the media companies are consolidating as the money and the ability for them to scale up is becoming harder and harder.
It seems to me we haven't discussed one very big topic.
Which is?
We're not getting off this show until we talk about this.
What's the topic?
LeBron James.
What about
he
him?
doesn't want to play. He's the reaction to him saying he would rather not play on Christmas.
That's not what he said. Oh, that is what he said.
Yeah.
But
See
he
how I
didn't
try to
say-
slip? with two people, I try to slip in as Adele and LeBron.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But he didn't say it in a way that I see. Actually, I thought that the reaction to it, most people were very understanding. The way you look at it is, and this is the sacrifices that these guys make.
Yeah.
First of all, to be
And he's been doing it for 20-something years now.
well,
It's
it's
nuts.
21st Christmas Day game, 21 of them. And again, when you talk about being present, you're taking that away, but it's also your job. So what I also saw him say was, I'm looking forward to it. People skip over that. And he also said it's something that he's honored to be able to do. But if you ask me what I would rather do,
Rather be with your
I would rather
family
be
at
with my
home.
family,
Right.
just like anybody else would rather be with their family. But the problem I got with that is, if that was anybody else that said that in that capacity, it would have been 10 years from now, you'll play that tape on somebody, or you'll see MJ say that to Ahmad Rashad.
Right.
And people will be like, so.
Again, LeBron James is a man under siege in his last year in LA. That drama is big money for the media outlets, and this podcast is a great counter to that. King James is the perfect nickname because LeBron, throughout his whole career, he's been steps ahead and he's learned from his mistakes. Look how he handled that 2010 decision to go to South Beach versus joining the Lakers and leaving Cleveland the second time. He had the I Promise school lined up, and it was a nice bow tie to end his reign in Cleveland. And at this very moment, like a true king, he's quickly lined up a medium to counter a lot of the narratives that'll take place with him this season after him and Rob Pelinka did not come to an agreement on an extension. It's funny how the news around those extension talks got very quiet. The Lakers could have easily had cut LeBron a much smaller deal and then leave the retirement on his terms. But who knows, they could have locked him in for a number that wouldn't really affect them too much. And I'm saying this even though we all understand that LeBron James is 41 years old, but I do believe he hasn't seen enough from Luka to allow him to take the reins fully. The lack of discipline on his diet throughout his whole career, and also the energy levels that he has defensively as a team captain, is going to trickle down on the rest of the team. So now this is the part where we're going to hear from Rich Paul, where they use more NFL analogies, and he uses the situation that's going on with Josh Allen and some people not necessarily believing that he's the next guy up. This in a way correlates to what I believe Rich Paul and LeBron James believe, is that Luka is not necessarily the next guy up the way the Lakers think that's going to play out.
Josh Allen hasn't won in the playoffs.
I understand what you're saying. Josh Allen got on that podium yesterday and said, I have to make that throw. See, here's the thing that I look at. There's some guys who are who they are, and there's some guys who's acting the part. Right now, don't get me wrong. I think there is all entertainment within every sport. But if you just watch, and it just happens in the NBA, I don't know if it happens as much in the NFL, because I do think these guys are genuine. I think Dak's genuine. I think Josh Allen's genuine. I think Jalen's genuine. A guy like Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. And it's mainly the quarterback who's getting a lot of the blame and the praise, because they play that position. But there's one thing to have leadership. There's another thing to act the part. And if you just watch closely, you see that the authenticity is there in a lot of people, but there's some acting. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you have to act a little bit, but if you act and it's not authentic, then your troops see that.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, if you ask anybody that has won a championship, especially the focal point, and I want to make sure I say something, as long as the foundation is authentic and there's acting within, you have to have that meter, right? From a leadership perspective.
The core is real.
Yeah.
And then within that, sometimes you have to play a certain role.
Yeah, you have to.
But it's coming from a place of truth.
You can't go overboard with that. And you can see it like every time something happens, you have to pick your spots, because then you would kind of get called out on it.
Is he going to get moved, do you think?
Here's the thing about trades like that. There's a lot of fantasy basketball players out there, and it's good to play fantasy basketball sometimes.
And you don't mean fantasy basketball with the numbers. You mean just like hot stove,
ideas,
hot
takes, hot this, hot that. If you're in the Milwaukee Bucks position, right? One, you have a guy like Giannis. You drafted him. You developed him. He won there. Ownership has changed, at least half of it.
There's great stories about fans giving him a ride when he's a rookie to the arena.
No, all of that. I mean, all of that. I remember when he first came in the league. All of that, right? Yeah. And you talk about drafts.
He's a champion.
The guy was the 15th pick in the draft.
Yep.
Okay?
By the way, he has an infectious personality. He's usually, when he talks,
doesn't take himself too serious.
You usually feel like he's in the right when he talks about stuff.
But also, he can get away with that too, because he didn't grow up here. So it's kind of looked at a little bit different. But with that being said, he's earned everything he's gotten in this league. And when you have a guy like that, and you're the Milwaukee Bucks, and if I know the Milwaukee Bucks like I think I know them, and I know them very well from ownership down, it's just tough to do. Now, there is going to come a time, again, it's all about communication. You sit with a guy like Giannis, and you say to Giannis, hey, what do you actually want to do? Most players don't ever want the onus to be on them. Very few guys want that. I don't care what position they're in. I don't care how high on the totem pole they are. No player wants to have the blame.
Right.
That's
Take the responsibility of making moves.
They could be the biggest warrior.
LeBron is accused of this more than anyone.
They just don't want that, right?
It's amazing that Max Kellerman says LeBron James has been accused of this. For the most part, all the moves he's made is as a free agent, which he has every right to exercise. So I don't get what's the whole issue, as if LeBron James is some sort of traitor. The real GOAT thing about him is that he opened up the players' eyes that they are a business and an entity that they should truly evaluate the NBA opportunity the same way the owners do. Because once the players no longer serve a franchise, they're going to ship you away like nothing. So that whole stay loyal to a team shit, it really financially benefits the owners. It's the very same narrative that goes around when it comes to NBA free agency. Guys want to see their names right on the ticker as soon as it hits July 1st or whatever's the first day of NBA free agency. Believe it or not, a lot of players get pressed to cut a deal, and sometimes they end up taking the short end of the stick just to see their names come up on the ticker on the first day. Even though major analysts like Woj used to pass around the narrative that players should hurry up and get their deals done before teams run out of money, even though free agency technically ends, I believe, in November or at the very end of October. And also with LeBron James and his former agent, Mark Termini, who's basically the blueprint of clutch sports. Even he admitted that in the return to Cleveland, they had to fight to get LeBron his first max contract. I repeat, in LeBron James's return to Cleveland, his agent, Mark Termini, stated that they had to fight to get a max contract. So once again, LeBron James, his GOATness really comes from opening the players' eyes to the true business of the game and only have loyalty to themselves and their families.
LeBron has always played his contracts out, and LeBron was criticized for making a decision that he was allowed to do. I'm a free agent. I can go wherever I want
Who in
to
their right
go.
mind would have stayed where he was based on the teams they were putting around
Whatever.
him?
But let's move on from that. So in this case, the way I see it is, no, the Bucks do not want to trade Giannis.
Do you think they will?
They would much rather keep rebuilding.
If
to keep
you were
people there,
Giannis's representative,
which I'm not,
would you want him out of there? Because if I was his rep, I would at this point.
but see, you say that, but here's what you have to look at. Okay, I was drafted here. I got my ownership group, the Haslams and West Edens, pretty deep pockets. They've been willing to pay the tax. We have a new facility. We have a new arena. We have a great fan base that was built, right? You have to put that on the board. And on top of that, and I do disagree with this. I think in the NBA, players are given things in terms of autonomy and some say before they ever earned it. There's very few guys in this league that has earned that.
He's a champion.
And if you haven't won a championship, you don't get to decide.
He's a champion.
Anything
He's already done it.
Damn, Rich Paul, you talking about Luka? The backlash around his trade was probably the worst in NBA history. But now he's going to have to live up to that backlash by proving that the Mavericks were wrong for sending him to LA. That is the very exact part that a lot of Laker fans in the next few years will come to grips with. Could this guy on a 10-year Supermax making over $80 million a year in a second apron hard cap NBA with Rob Pelinka as a GM, will that result in a Lakers championship? That right there is what Laker fans should really be thinking about, because the odds right now, including the history of Rob Pelinka and Luka, they say no.
And if you haven't won a championship, you don't get to decide.
He's a champion.
Anything
He's
for
already
that
done
matter.
it.
Right. But he's actually one that's a champion. So am I coming to him, asking him for his say? No. Am I coming to him saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this. I'm just making you aware of this. And you can give some input or insight if you actually know it, but I have to make my own decision. If I'm in that position, I'm making my own decision. And I know a lot of times people thought like, oh, I see people say, they don't run the Lakers. We never ran the Lakers. That was never a thing. By the way, if I ran the Lakers, I would have been a part of the deal and got some of that moolah, right? So I think people just say things just to say it on most platforms.
No, I understand why people think that, Rich. I understand why, because if you were the Lakers at the time LeBron got there, it would make a lot of sense. I used to say this on TV. When the Lakers would push back, I used to say, guys, if I'm running, I say it on the radio in LA, if I'm running the Lakers and I think that Clutch can help bring LeBron here, give them what they want.
No, but see.
But it makes sense from a distance.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the reality of it is, people are more concerned about everything else than an actual partnership. And I mean, I have a great relationship, and we had and continue to have a great partnership with the Lakers, but it's not like what you would think.
Right, you're not calling the shots.
And by the way, I don't want that responsibility.
Sure.
Now, for someone in my position, I look at myself as a partner to all teams that I have. You know, it's like playing Monopoly. You land on Boardwalk, you land on Park Place, you want to put a hotel on it, right? And so that, you look at it from that perspective. So if I'm in that position, and again, I do not represent Giannis, not looking for that, but you ask me a question, I'm gonna answer it. I have to look at all those things. There's also a world where instead of moving right away, you also focus on trying to be a great partner. Now, when you are a great partner, I'm not coming to the team with just my players, and we have a lot of them. No, I'm coming to, and this is how you build that real, authentic relationship and rapport, right? That's unbiased. If I'm only coming to you with my players, now I'm making it about a transaction, and that's pretty selfish of me.
You're also not looking at it,
and you're not looking at it holistically
for your client, because your client's not going to be in a winning position.
That's not what that's about. You have to look at it differently. And if you know basketball, which some do, some don't, some look at highlights, some whatever the case may be, that's their prerogative. You got to look at it and say, how can I help my client and also help the organization? And if you actually have the capabilities of doing that, then yes. I've had conversations with players that I don't represent. I've had conversations with players, agents that I don't represent, and we've worked together. That's there to do.
What do you mean,
that.
like to help bring them to a certain team that your client's already playing for?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're saying
But
you
there's
don't know
only
that?
a
I
few
mean,
guys
you're
that
saying
can
you
do
don't know
that.
that you would want to move Giannis if you represented him.
No, I don't know if I because again, where are you going? See, people always
LA. Like if I'm the Lakers, I'm looking at the roster, I'm seeing Luka Doncic and nothing else. I think if you start a franchise with Luka, you're in very good shape. Now, how are you going to build around that?
Now, Max, once again, you would have been in very good shape under the old CBA rules. Luka right now is an 8-year player. So in 2 more seasons, he's going to be eligible for that 10-year Supermax, where he's going to get paid well over $70 million a year. And the real question is what kind of team they're going to form around him when the Lakers don't necessarily have the reputation of building a team from the ground up the same way the Spurs or the Heat do. They're not the kind of organization that's known of developing players, and that's where they're really going to close the gap and get Luka up to that next level. Sure, they can get a co-star either through free agency or trade, but the real gems are going to be the players that come from the draft and the players that they develop. So once again, that's a bad assumption. And for those of you that are watching the visual version, I'll put up a chart of exactly what I'm talking about. The Lakers will have to avoid hitting that second apron when Luka will be on that 10-year Supermax contract, which starts, I believe, at $70 million plus per year. So once teams start hitting that second apron, like the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis right now, the Phoenix Suns when they had Kevin Durant, it's hard for them to even sign free agents. They can't get any mid-level exception guys. And the type of trades that they can make is very limited. They almost have to trade salary for salary. That's why I'm always stating Luka's prime years in LA is not guaranteed. And Laker fans will eventually wake up to this.
Okay, Max.
LeBron's old. Austin Reaves is a little redundant.
Here's the thing, Max. You got me in trouble the last time with these type of conversations because I'm not going to ever get up here and tell a lie. Right? I'm not going to do that.
Sure.
There will be times I just decide not to say anything.
It's safer.
This won't be one of those times.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Here comes a social media clip.
When you talk about the education of it all, and I'm going to be going to games long after my guy retires and you know.
Rich, what are you doing in the nosebleeds?
I won't be in the nosebleeds. I'll be where I normally am if I decide, or I might be there sometimes, but I might like to play I like to play the sweet sometimes, especially at the football game.
Yeah, sweet's nice.
I'd rather play the sweet. At a basketball game, I prefer feet on wood.
Sure.
But nevertheless, when you talk about where you want to place somebody, and again, we're going into the fantasy basketball of it all, but I think for the viewers, you have to give them some insight. When you're building a team, right, the one thing you can't do is only focus on names. That's not good. And what I mean by that is, and I remember having this conversation with my guy, David Blitzer, who is part of the Blitzer Harris group. Harris Blitzer group that owned the Sixers. We was having a conversation. We were in Shanghai or Beijing somewhere years ago. And I was talking to Josh and David, and I was telling them, like, I don't like a big three. I just don't like it.
In this NBA, you might,
no NBA. I'm going to tell you why.
Time was pretty good.
Yeah, but I like a big two.
Yeah.
And depth.
Yeah.
Now.
That seems to be preferable.
Yes, but.
No, that is the reality today. Once again, that second apron, it's not scaring teams for no reason. You're restricted on how you can improve your team going from year to year. And even if you miss the playoffs or your team is performing worse and worse, like the Phoenix Suns were with Kevin Durant, you're stuck in no man's land.
Here's the other thing. Before you can even get into personnel, I think you have to focus on two things: culture and development. Because when you have culture and development, you're able to build consistency within the organization, right?
Hey, Rich Paul right here talking about the Lakers. This is exactly what they don't have today. We're not talking about the Lakers of the past. We're talking about the Genie Bus Lakers. They haven't had it for a while now. LaMarcus Aldridge in his free agency back in 2014 had alluded to it. He said that the Lakers were all about branding and they never talked about winning in their meeting with him.
Now, you have those things: culture, development, that brings forth consistency of habits, consistency of character, right? Now you start to really have this across the group.
Rich Paul sounds like he's describing Pat Riley's Miami Heat. See, once again, this is where the Lakers are kind of in trouble right here. Rich Paul, LeBron, their whole crew, they've been in Miami and they've seen how Pat Riley ran things down there. They understand that a championship organization looks a certain way, and off rip, as soon as they landed in LA, they knew you guys weren't it.
Consistency of character, right? Now you start to really have this across the group. Now when you come to evaluating talent, you're evaluating talent from a totally different perspective. It's not just about the name on the back, right? So
it's how it all functions together. Yeah.
Yes. And when you're trying to manage a salary cap, it's so important to draft not only well from a talent perspective, from a character and IQ perspective, right? I watch a lot of games. Simple stuff like this. If I give you the ball, if we're on a fast break and I give up the ball early, if you touch that ball and take a dribble, that defeats the purpose of me giving you the ball early.
Right.
I'm giving it to you early because the defensive guy has to react a certain way and you give it right back.
Gotta move it, yeah.
You just, but when you watch these games, you see these things, it's like, oh, that's just like a, Coach Thornton saying, Aloysius, we used to do this all the time. But this is the NBA. But still, all these players get this criticism, right? But nevertheless, going back to your point about where to go.
This leads to a JJ Redick conversation real quick.
But going to your point about where to go, I'm not looking at certain cities or anything like that. That's not what I'm looking at. And obviously, if you got those two guys, yes. But again, you're talking about playing fantasy basketball. And when people don't know the rules, people just think anything. People say, oh, well, if LeBron wasn't making $53 million, no, that's not true. That's far from true, number one. You probably could have been, get a, mid-level, whatever the case may be. Because it's not like...
When you can grandfather in a contract, it's different than acquiring a guy.
Now, letting a contract expire and letting other contracts expire, and you have X amount of cap space. That's a timing thing.
Sure.
If you have to line it all the way up for that to happen, and then that player has to want to be there because their contract may be longer. So it's and then you can't give a necessary
Well, I mean,
you can't say what you want to do.
This started because the conversation started because you said, where would Giannis go? And the two biggest markets, markets could both use him in New York and LA.
But that's again, you focus on big markets.
I'm not saying that's where Giannis should go. I'm just saying the fact of the matter is the two biggest markets.
Right. So here's what happens.
Could be title contenders.
When you in big markets and you focus on names, that's the beginning of the end.
Once again, Rich Paul, more shots at Rob Pelinka. They landed their big fish in Luka, but what else have they done? How can you start a season knowing that you don't have good enough perimeter defenders and you got a guy like Luka?
Look at the small markets. Look at OKC and look at San Antonio.
Sure.
They don't have that ability to rest on that. So what do? They build a culture and development.
Rich Paul going in on the Lakers right now. There's just so many things happening at once. It's kind of hard to keep up with, but the fact that Hollywood no longer has the monopoly to create mega stars like they used to, and the rise of social media, it's also having an impact on the Lakers because now they're actually forced into developing talent within. How many free agents have they struck out with in the past 10 years? There's Paul George. He chose to renew his contract in OKC. There was Melo around 2015, 2014. Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus Aldridge. Even more recently, Klay Thompson choosing the Dallas Mavericks over the Lakers. What is the pivot for Jeannie Buss when you no longer have the, I would say the advantage of getting stars? Because her motto is, stars want to come here. Sure, that's the case in maybe the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, but we're in different times right now, and the Lakers don't have a history or even the infrastructure around to develop players. Once again, Jeannie Buss's siblings were in charge of the scouting for years. The timing should come by no surprise that she recently let go of both of them because we're in the NBA today where your scouting is important. You got to land on gems in the late first round and second round and just even undrafted. Pretty much the money for any player, no matter where you go in the draft, is unlimited. We just seen way too many examples of it. Right here, Rich Paul further elaborates, and he uses the San Antonio Spurs as a prime example of an organization that doesn't necessarily rely on names.
And again,
they have multiple playmakers. You mentioned it. They have Wemby. Go ahead and answer that.
Yeah, they have Wemby. They have Fox, Vassell, Castle, Harper. But again, going to names, okay? We know who the big name guys are for both of those teams. That's not who's actually putting them over the top. When you ask a guy like Keldon Johnson in the beginning of the year to play a certain role, and he buys into that and decides that I'm going to play that role.
That's based on culture and drafting high IQ players
and developing them. And then when you have a guy like Harrison Barnes, right, who's a true professional.
Getting the right veteran mix in. Yep.
This is what I'm saying. So now most teams draft a guy, number 2, Dylan Harper, he has to start.
Yeah.
He's coming off the bench.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. So culture, development. Same thing with OKC. They have an embarrassment of riches. They got more picks than anybody. Their first round guys a lot of them were coming off the bench, right? And so I think it's a matchup we would love to see in the playoffs, obviously. And yes, I think that's something that's building there. But do I think it automatically means that, they're just going to run through OKC? No, and I don't think San Antonio believes that. I don't get over panicked about the regular season because there's a lot that comes with it.
You've said it. The NBA is getting ready for the playoffs.
Last year, Indiana was not that great.
No.
Halliburton didn't even make the All-Star team.
Yeah, but they had an identity all year.
But in the beginning, it was a little struggle, and then they came on strong at the end and made it to the final.
It's not a coincidence Rich Paul pointed out the Pacers because their development really showed going into last year's playoffs. The amount of guys like Ben Shepherd, Obi Toppin, Nembhard, Naismith, Benedict Mathurin, and even TJ McConnell. It goes to show you, just like Rich Paul said, they had a good eye for veterans, mix them up with certain youth players, and also knowing who fits, making that trade for Pascal Siakam, one of the most underrated successful trades that have been pulled off in the past couple of seasons. The Pacers front office definitely had a vision when building that team. Now, Rich Paul also further elaborated on Luka's role as a leader of this team. How has he embraced it? He gives some great insight to it.
Guys that come in and don't understand how to embrace a role, they're going to have a short career.
By the way, I'll extend that. A guy like Luka also has to play a role, because even though the role he casts is as a star, right? He's cast as the star, the leading man, but there's still things that he has not embraced yet that come along with that role, that if he were to do that, the Lakers would be much better off, including, as Reggie Miller pointed out last night, guys running by, move your feet on defense. Like, move a foot, do something. Show, you gotta, when LeBron has been great with the Lakers, it's when like AD challenged him to play defense, and all of a sudden the Lakers looked completely different. Even though LeBron's an old man, he was playing defense. When that guy will lead by example, and that's something so what I'm saying is, no matter what role you have, including as the star, you have to fully embrace what comes with that. And it's like, it's not just the Iguodala's or Aaron Gordon's giving up being the primary scorer on a team or something like that. It's also the star giving up the idea that they can just play their way, right? Like, they have to make some sacrifices.
Yeah, normally it's not the superstar guy that's going to be the all-defensive guy.
Doesn't have to be all defense.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
How about some defense?
No, I'm just saying. And even in LeBron's case,
he's none defense, not all defense.
People get on him about the defense today.
Yeah,
but we've seen it. We've seen
LeBron?
the guy. Yeah, we've seen it.
He's 41 years old.
I understand. If you have to depend on the 41-year-old, we're in trouble anyway.
Come on,
but
Luka's 26.
I'm saying prior to that, anytime you have a guy like that who can switch 1 through 5, you saw in the finals, guarding Duncan to Kawhi to Tony Parker to Ginobili.
Dude, you don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
In, what was it, 12 or 13, when LeBron went crazy defensively, that was the best defensive player I've ever seen in my life in basketball is Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was the best defensive player I've ever seen. He could legit guard 1 through 5, and it was a problem for that player. He had the best defensive and rebounding instincts I've ever seen.
That was a conversation yesterday.
What's that?
I sent you the clip.
Oh, Draymond?
Yeah. But not to go off on that.
No.
Not to go
Draymond
off on that,
offensively could do more, and Draymond changed the game.
That was a good, I thought that was a good topic.
No question. We could do it if you want. But defensively, my point is, the closest thing I've ever seen to Dennis Rodman defensively, it's going to sound funny, was LeBron James that year. It was LeBron James when he could switch onto Derrick Rose, and like there wasn't anything he couldn't do.
But the point I'm saying is, I don't want to be too harsh on Luka, because I do think Luka will play defense, and I also think those are conversations to be had. But again, during the regular season, guys, if we really broke down everybody's film in terms of the star players that you're asking to score 30 every night, very few of them going to score 30 every night and play defense. This is what makes Ant so really, because
the greatest of all time, do though, Rich. Like every time there's a.
Come on, Rich, don't avoid telling the truth now. SGA is also on that list. A guy who's averaging 30 a game and playing defense. We've seen it no further than in Game 4 in the finals. OKC had their backs against the wall. SGA had nothing going in that third quarter. So he stepped up defensively while J-Dub took over. And then in the fourth quarter, he finally woke up. So in the past couple seasons, we've seen the rise of these type of two-way guards. Guys like Cade Cunningham also plays defense, while at the same time offensively, he does play in a very similar style as Luka.
White player who's over 6'6" and he can play an overall game, he gets compared to Larry Bird, right? Larry Bird can play defense. I mean, for that era.
Yes, but you didn't see every game. I'm talking about.
Yes, you did. You might not see him be on ball shutting a guy down.
This is what I'm saying.
But he played smart defense every game.
But what I'm saying is, when you are in a playoff setting, right? Now, defense just takes effort and energy. I get all that. But there is something to be said that if you're asking me to score 35 a night on one end, I'm not saying just be a matador. I'm not saying that.
Damn, Rich, isn't Luka's nickname the Matador? So if you're not asking him to live up to his nickname, the Matador, what the hell do you expect him to be?
And just be a matador. I'm not saying that. But I am saying we have to look at everyone's film because it's easy to have revisionist history. And I know a lot of people get on these shows and they talk about certain things. Now, I'm never going to go against a Hall of Famer. They know what they see, etc. All I'm saying is that's just a conversation, right? And then you have to push that.
If Luka, instead of 35 a night, scored 28 a night, 27 a night, at least play heads up defense, team defense.
And I think he will.
Austin Reaves is not a good defender, but Austin Reaves is a willing team defender.
I think he will.
Steph Curry's not a good defender, but he's a willing team defender. At least he was when he was younger, right? Luka, that's disgusting what I saw last night.
Listen,
let's be honest.
I think let's just call it an off night then if you want to say that.
And Jimmy Butler would bring to the Lakers, not only would they get a little younger there, I mean, Jimmy's 36, but he's not 41. But he would bring the ruckus to the Lakers that they need. Like, someone needs to cause a problem with Luka. Luka can't just be, if the Lakers gave him the keys to the franchise, he can't just do whatever he wants. If he dribbles the ball to death and doesn't get his teammates involved and plays hero ball and it's James Harden 2.0 and doesn't move his feet on defense, doesn't even make an effort.
What's gotten into you? Did you wake? What?
What
did Luka do to you?
I was disgusted last night. I was disgusted.
Come on, Rich. You already knew his opinions about Luka before you started this show. Come on, man.
I was disgusted.
It feels like it. What did Luka do? How did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed?
Luka Doncic, because Luka should be the best player in the NBA. He should be, but he's not. He's not.
Hey, Mad Max is actually cooking right here. Luka has not yet returned to the form that he was at before he had entered the finals back in 2024. You would think with him joining the Lakers, you would instantly see him take the reins of that franchise next to a 41-year-old LeBron James. The only thing that we're able to tell as spectators looking from the outside in is that the Lakers organization internally is giving him the keys to the franchise. But on the court, it's looking a little 50-50.
He was precocious. Like, look where he was when he was 22. He should be farther along. And I know he's a great offensive player. So was James Harden. We see that style doesn't win championships. And you got to have at least pretend to care about defense, right?
You hear Rich Paul humming? Rich Paul does not want to get caught up in Max's comments. He's sort of throwing a distraction while Max kind of says the truth right here. Luka's elevation in his first 5 years has kind of plateaued now.
Jimmy Butler would confront Luka in the right way in that locker room.
I'm going to need you to be a little more positive in the new year.
Okay? This is positive.
Here's what I would say to you.
I think it would positively affect everybody.
But here's what I'm saying. Let's take both of those teams out of it.
Okay.
And let's just talk about what it actually takes.
Okay.
It don't take one player for anything. It don't matter. It don't take one player. Based upon what you have from a roster perspective, you have to evaluate that roster and you have to build that both on and off the floor.
Rich.
Talent and character.
Everything.
Hey, there goes Rich going back to that talent and character. Builds consistency in an organization. That's what he stated before. And once again, that's more stabs at Rob Pelinka and the Lakers organization. But we'll see. This is one hell of a conundrum that JJ Redick finds himself in because he does not have the power to wheel in LeBron or Luka. And the Lakers internally, they're not even set up to put the proper pieces around Luka. It took the Mavericks quite a while to figure out that formula. And they lucked out after making that trade for Gafford and PJ Washington. But hey, it is what it is. These Cold War games, it seems like LeBron James and Rich Paul, along with their financial backers, are down with it. They have no intention to get caught up in the media's algorithms. But it is what it is. We'll see how this plays out. But you guys definitely hit up the link in the description below. We got plenty of stories like this. Hit up the NBA True Story playlist and also the NBA Hardwood Nuances, where it's a little bit of the game film mixed in with the storytelling. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.